Number 10. When I was about 6 to 7 years old, I lived in the Philippines with my mum and 2 siblings. My dad was a Japanese, so he lived in Japan and was separated from us. My grandparents lived with us while my uncle, mum's younger brother, aunt and 2 cousins lived near us. I was a really happy-go-lucky girl. I wasn't shy and I was friendly with everyone, even if I didn't know them. I had no problem speaking to older people than me. One time, our air conditioning broke and we really needed it fixed since it was in the middle of summer and was super hot. Well, most of the times it's hot in the Philippines, but you get the point. My mum was looking for someone to fix it when my other aunt, mum's older sister who lived far away from us, recommended her boyfriend who apparently was a technical technician. My mum was skeptical at first, since this person was a stranger and she'd never met him before. But my aunt persisted, and finally, mum agreed. He came over and started fixing the air conditioning. The air conditioning was located in mum's bedroom. She didn't trust the guy on his own in her room, so she ordered me and my younger brother by a year to watch some TV in her room and keep an eye on the man. Making kids keep an eye on an older man on their own seems stupid. What can kids do? But really, it wasn't that much of a big deal since there were people downstairs and I was pretty sure he wasn't going to be able to do something. And even if he did, there was no way to escape since we live in a middle class to an upper class subdivision. And of course, there were security guards, so there was really no worry. So me and my brother watched some cartoons and didn't pay much attention to the man, he just kept on working. After some time, he called us over and smiled kindly at us. We of course smiled back at him out of politeness. He didn't set off a weird vibe as far as I remember. He turned towards my brother and asked him to bring something to drink since it was hot and he'd been working for quite some time. I was slightly confused by this. Why would he particularly ask my brother? I didn't know, and truth is, I didn't care at the time. This is where it turned scary. I was about to walk back in my seat in front of the TV when he called and gestured for me to sit beside him. Me being the naive girl I was, I did. I sat beside him, not too close. I remember that his smile dropped a little before it came back brighter. He closed the short distance between us that our arms and legs were brushing each other. Red bells still hasn't gone off in my head. His voice turned into a whimper. "Do you want me to tickle you?" he asked. I felt that he was just playing, so I shook my head no with a grin. I was very ticklish, and I didn't like being tickled because it made my stomach hurt and made me breathless. My grin dropped on what he did next. He lifted up my skirt slightly while caressing my thigh. He then said in my ear, "I can lick you down there." I was frightened now. Even at a young age, I knew he wasn't supposed to be doing what he was doing. I shook my head no again, but this time, no more playfulness. I was about to cry, but held it in with all my might. My heart was pounding and I couldn't utter a single word. He lifted up my skirt more. "Come on, it's gonna be fun. It'll just tickle." He was smiling that creepy smile that I will never forget. I shook my head again and took my skirt away from him. He wouldn't let go. That lasted for about a few minutes with him caressing my thigh, closing in every time. We stayed like that when suddenly he dropped my skirt and slowly inched away from me. Not a second later my brother came in with his water and he gladly took it with a bright smile on his face, as if nothing happened, as if he didn't do what he just did. My brother resumed watching TV while I stood up and headed out of the room and down the stairs. I didn't dare look at him again. I got downstairs and asked my grandfather where my mum was. He said she was out with my aunt to the mall. I couldn't hold it anymore. I lay down on the sofa and covered my face with a pillow and cried silently. I didn't tell anybody about that incident. Not a single person. I was traumatized. Every time Mum would hire someone to fix something, I would always sit on the stairs when the person would come over and I would peek to see if it was the man again. Fortunately, he never came again, but I never let my guard down ever again. I would always be by an adult's side when a person I don't know was near me. This continued on until I was 10 years old, and we had to move and live with my dad in Japan. But my personality changed. I became an introvert and never spoke to anybody unless necessary. In school, I only had girlfriends and not one single guy friend. But even though I was quiet, I never let myself be a victim again. Just a month ago, on my way to school, I was in the train when I felt a hand brushing my bum. I didn't want to react too soon and just humiliate myself, so I just waited. Not a minute later, the brushing became pinching, and that's when my anger flared. I swiftly turned around and glared at the perverted fucker. He was surprised and quickly left the train. So, to the sick man who likes tickling young girls, and also the perverted fucker on the train, let's not meet. Because next time, you'll have hell to pay for. Number 9. As a 16-year-old girl, incidents like this scare me shitless. For some background, I'm 5'3", skinny, and I have long black hair, and for some reason this always gets creepers to latch onto me. Not sure. Anyways, me, my sister and my best friend, all girls, had plans to go out and grab dinner, and then go hit the roller skating rink downtown. After dinner we had an hour to kill before the rink opened, and so we journeyed around downtown area. We actually ran into the most popular tobacco water pipe store, and I grabbed a few things before it closed. And then we hit up the rink soon after. All was well. I grabbed my skates and started skating, stumbling as I forgot how to do it from so long ago. But after I got the hang of how the fuck to use those shoes with wheels, I was really exhausted and wanted a water. Wheeling into the food and drink area, I rolled up to the counter and there was already a man standing there waiting for his order. I ordered my water, and while I was waiting he struck up a conversation about roller skating, and I thought nothing of it until he offered to help me out and looked me up and down, literally licking and biting his lips right in front of me. He looked about the age of 30 at least, and I don't look much older than I actually am. Weirded out, I said nothing and rolled away. Maybe it was just something I saw in my head, but I still wanted to have a fun night. A few minutes roll by, pun intended, when he glides up next to me and asks my age. I told him to guess. He said 17, and I turned 17 in about 3 weeks, so I told him he was right. That's a good age. What? Before I could reply, he rolled ahead further. He would occasionally roll by me and called me by my name, and give me tips to improving my skate performance. Nothing too creepy, but still fucking weird. When I asked his age, he said he was 23, but at the tobacco water pipe store, I mentioned the cashier was 26, and looked way younger than this guy. This dude looked like he could be my dad. The moment I got fed up was when I was grabbing my sister a tampon from her bag, and this guy followed me and said, "You know, Olivia, you're really beautiful, especially for a 17-year-old. I replied with a dry, "I try," to which he replied, "Well, it works," before I left to save my sister from the bloody claws of death. I essentially forced my sister to trade shirts with me not long after, as I was sweating fucking balls in a sleeveless turtleneck, and she had a lighter shirt with an open back. Yay. Then, as I'm standing with my best friend and my sister in the snacking area, he rolls up behind me, and as he's rolling to the counter he looks me up and down and says, rather loudly as he licks and bites his lips again, "Getting a little hot in here, trying to show off more." He literally fucking winked. Gag. That is when I lost my fucking cool. "You know I'm barely 17, right?" I said, giving him a dirty ass look and rolling into the rink to get away. "What do you mean? I know you're 17. He he asked while rolling around beside me. Don't you think I'm young? I replied as if fuck says, a little. A little? I replied crossly. I gave him the dirtiest look I could. After that I wanted to go home. My best friend fell 4 times, my sister got a period, and I wanted to try my new pipe. I was out. As I handed in my roller skates I complained, and the guy there got the manager, who was this lovely lady who gave me and my group 4 free passes to come back, and they never expire. She was absolutely amazing, and was lovely and understood the whole situation. As I was about to walk out, I noticed he was constantly staring at me, with a bunch of people sat around him at his table. He was sitting with people, but he looked a little awkward, but they looked like his friends. I walked up to this arsehole's table, slamming my water bottle down, and proceeded to yell, "Listen here, arsehole, next time you hit on someone, make sure they're not someone who can be the age of your kid. Thanks for ruining my night, you fucking creep." Dead silence as I look at him straight in the eyes, and as I left, I slammed the door on my way out. I hope I embarrassed him, and I sincerely hope he never has a daughter, because someone that creepy, unashamed, and to the point that even the fucking manager and my sister and my friend notice his creepy behaviour and staring, it's scary to think about what he's capable of doing. Side note, my pipe has a little flower on it, and it's pink and cute as fuck, so the trip was not a total loss. Number 8. I've had so many weird experiences and encounters in my life. I read these stories all the time from brave people who shared, so I decided to share one of mine. This is my first Reddit post here, so here goes. I grew up in a affluent neighbourhood, about 45 minutes from any major city in the US. My neighbourhood was a total bedroom community up to around 4,000 people, which means virtually no crime aside from stupid rich tad kids driving around here in mailboxes with a baseball bat. I had much more sense early on because both of my parents worked hard and taught me the value of doing the same, along with other virtues like respect and just generally not being a total clown shoes arsehole to people. Anyway, for reference, this event happened when I was 12 in the late 90s. I'm a girl, and no, I've since grown about 4 inch. I was about 5'2" and probably barely 100 pounds. I've always been very athletic, playing multiple sports from the time I was even mildly conscious, because I have a good number of high-level athletes in the family, including my dad. My mum is from a major city and taught me the value of awareness of my surroundings early. All this will make sense in a moment. She always told me to have my keys to our house out and in my hand as soon as I got off the school bus to walk down my street home. Though I never knew why. I'm so glad she always stressed this, because I'm pretty certain it saved my life. So, one day, I said bye to my friends and hop off the bus to take the short walk down to my house. My street curves in a half circle, which makes it difficult to see around the curve. So basically, you can only see a bit in front and a bit behind as you walk. It's the least creepy street ever, neighbours all around with a comfortable distance between houses. As I'm mindlessly walking around my curving street, I get a funny feeling that makes me turn and look behind me, just as the crossing street is going out of my view. I see a man walking down the street that mine makes a T-shape with, the one I was dropped off on. Weird, I think, as I've never seen him before, and not to say we knew everyone, but what struck me was that he wasn't really dressed like people did around there. He was dressed fine in jeans and a polo, both of which were way too big. I shrugged and kept walking, but something was really bothering me about this guy. I was about to walk by my next door neighbour's house, still pondering what was making me feel so scared, when I looked back again. I figured I'd have to walk out into the street a bit to see where he went. But no, he had walked a far distance. I had walked a fair distance, but this guy was suddenly no more than 10 feet away from me. You always think in situations like this you'd scream or something, but my breath caught in my throat. I couldn't fathom how he'd gotten so close that fast, and his eyes and his wide-eyed hyper-focused stare threw daggers into my stomach. I knew I was in big, big trouble. Not wanting to find out what the fuck he wanted, who he was, or why he was gaining on me, I went directly into flight mode knowing my house was about 100 yards away. I noped hard. I took off running across my driveway and realised he was running after me because I heard his feet on the asphalt then on my driveway. I know he was close because I ran track, but I didn't waste time looking back. Realising my backpack, which probably weighed half of what I did, was slowing me down, I threw my arms back, holding my keys in a death grip. I knew I could outrun him if I weren't so heavy and my backpack slipped off. I was able to gain distance on him, and I don't know if it was panic or adrenaline or whatever, but my front door keyhole became huge in my eyesight and I jammed the key in and got inside. I slammed my big ass oak door so hard that it recoiled, and half thinking about what could have happened if he got into my empty house, I slammed it and locked it. I stood there for a second, just wide-eyed and confused, until I realised I should look out of the peephole. When I did, it was pitch black. More confusion. It was 3 PM. I stood looking and started to shake uncontrollably, and that's when I saw why it was black. Light started coming through as I saw this fucking creep's eye, and then him backing away from the door having tried to look in. He was that close to me. He stood there for a moment, eyeballing my door and house, probably looking for another way in. Then he started turning around on my porch to face the street, cursing under his breath. I could see him mouthing it, but couldn't hear partially, I'm sure because I was in total shock. Then, he raises that creep factor to new heights. He skip walks off my porch, across my giant lawn to the street in the same direction we had been running, and raises his hand into the air. From behind my very tall pine trees on the right vantage point, I see a white, windowless van pull up in front and he hops in. I can't see the driver because of the tinted windows in front, but they're sat there, and I swear I could feel them looking at my door, maybe figuring out what to do next. I'm shaking writing this now. They drove off and I slumped to the floor shaking and freaking out so hard I legitimately had to crawl to my kitchen. I hid and called my mum, who despite working all the way downtown in the city, made the 45-minute drive home in 15. She drove around ready to pull their spines out, because, although she's the kindest person I've ever known, she will kick your ass. Or worse, if you mess with me, haha. We called the cops and I gave my statement, but they never found those freaks. So, creepy bait and switch kidnappers, let's not ever meet. Number 7. So, I just got back from the store and I gotta share this experience I've just had with you guys. It may not be as scary as some of the other encounters posted to this subreddit, but it still gives me the chills. Let me start off by saying that this morning I wasn't in the best of moods. I had to work the graveyard shift last night and I woke up after only 4 hours of sleep with my back killing me. I couldn't get back to sleep, so I decided that I would go run a few errands since I was now wide awake. I needed to get a haircut while I was out as well. My sister works at a salon that is right next to Targier. So after I got my sister to mow my scalp, for free by the way, I popped over to Targier, intending to grab a few things before heading home. So, I was pushing my cart down the frozen food section, and I turned to the corner to go into the next aisle. When I did, There was a middle-aged lady that was pushing her cart, heading in the opposite direction. I nearly bumped into her, but stopped before our carts collided. She gave me a mean look and said in a real bitchy tone, "Excuse me." Now, again, I have to say I wasn't in the best of moods, and I'm a short-tempered person as it is, so without thinking, I told shot back at her and said, "Shut up, you're fine. Call me an asshole if you want, no one's perfect." But what happened next was just pure insanity. The lady then suddenly left her shopping cart and started to follow me. I noticed this about halfway down the aisle, and I turned around to ask her what her problem was. And then, I shit you not, she rolled her eyes into the back of her head, pointed at me, and screamed very loudly. When I say screamed, I mean she was shrieking at the top of her lungs. It was like something out of The Exorcist. I hurried down the aisle to get away from this insane person, but she started running after me, still pointing at me. Needless to say, all the bystanders immediately stopped what they were doing and stared at us. The lady kept screaming like a banshee at the top of her lungs while she chased me around the store. Well, I noped the fuck out of her. Didn't feel like explaining the situation to an employee, and I couldn't stand hearing that earpiece and scream 1 second longer. I ran out of the exit of the store. I looked back into the store as I headed for my car. The lady was just standing outside the now open automated sliding doors, but she was still inside the store, if that makes sense. While she stood there, her mouth was hanging wide open, and she was still pointing at me, and her eyes were still rolled back into her head. All you could see was the whites of her eyes. She suddenly turned around and briskly walked back into the store. I decided to pick up my stuff at Walmart just down the street instead. All I could think the entire drive home was, what the fuck was that? Creepy screaming possessed banshee lady. Perhaps I shouldn't have been so rude to you, but you still have a few more than one loose screw in your noggin. Let's not meet again. Number 6. This happened to me 5 years ago, mid-September in Tyrol, Austria. I am a 25-year-old male. Back then, I was 20. Not really the anxious type of person. Cautious, but not anxious. I did Muay Thai for years, and was used to fight, so I did never really fear unarmed hostile people I've met. Though, I am that kind of person that checks the door lock twice. I am also very aware of sounds I hear at night, and immediately check them. As since the borders of the European Union are free to pass, and gypsies flock to Middle and Western Europe. I am not racist. I am from the Balkans myself, though here in my area, burglary is common. Even I live countryside. The town has about 15,000 inhabitants, but I live directly at the train station on the other side of a large river, where gypsies often sleep in their vans on the parking lot of the train station. I was on my way to work, 5 AM, a foot walk of approximately 15 minutes. When I leave my house, I am at the local train station after 2 minutes. There is an underpass below the rail track to reach the other side safely. The train station itself is up a hillock left hand side. On the right hand side, there is a large cornfield, and behind that cornfield is the Inn River. The whole rail track is up that hillock, and only the train station itself is lit along the rail track. The platform lies in darkness. I need to go to the other side of the Inn River, what requires me to walk along that 0.5 miles along that cornfield, of which ends next to the bridge that leads towards the town centre. My girlfriend works 21 miles away, so she takes the car if we both have to work. I hated to walk along that cornfield in the darkness. I hate cornfields since my childhood, when, On an 8-hour trip to Italy, I've read Stephen King's Children of the Corn, 11 years old. What always left me uncomfortable walking along them. Usually, nobody is there at 5 AM, as the train schedule starts at 5:30, so I was even more uncomfortable as I recognised someone walking behind me in the underpass. As I left it and started my quick-paced walk along the corn, I looked back a few times, but nobody followed me. He must have walked up the stairs to the platform, waiting for the first train to arrive, I thought. After 30 yards along my beloved corn, I heard a pebble or something hitting the metal frame where you can lock your bicycle onto. So I looked back again and saw the man coming out of the underpass. He headed my direction, so I assumed he had to go to the town centre too. But after a few steps, I looked again and found his walk very odd. He didn't really stagger or stumble. It looked like he might be disabled and couldn't walk properly. So I immediately felt bad for suspecting him to be drunk foremost. I heard the soles of his shoes drag on the floor, but suddenly he stopped. I looked back and he just stood there, looking my direction. I was ahead only 50 yards, stopped and looked too. As he started to move again, I went on and decided to walk faster to reach the bridge, where the streetlights waited for me. The light from the train station would illuminate another few yards before I had to walk more than half of the way in darkness. As I continued my walk, I suddenly heard him following me very quick. He nearly ran, so I turned again. As I turned, I grabbed a lighter from my pocket and held it tight in my fist to guarantee a hard as fuck punch if I had to. He caught up a great distance, maximum 10 yards away now, but immediately stopped after I saw him. He held his arms and hands in a spastic T-Rex position, knock knees, but it was already too dark to see his entire face clearly. I was getting angry, so I yelled at him. Why the fuck he always stopped when I stopped? He just chuckled and said nothing, stood there in his extraordinary position and started to feel bad again. He must be retarded, I thought, and sunk my fist, turned and decided to jog the rest of the way. Bad idea. Over the sound of myself jogging on pebble, I couldn't hear shit, so when I looked back, I found this guy gone. He wouldn't have been able to make it back to the underpass in those seconds. Now, not even I would have. I concentrated trying to spot him in the darkness, but even with my cell phone flashlight, I couldn't. Fuck this shit. It was getting way too crazy, and the cold wind, rustling of the leaves, and soughing of the river made me nervous. I work at a restaurant where the community of handicapped people in town often visit with their person in charge, and I've never seen this guy. I just wanted to reach my job as fast as possible. I turned and walked again with my cell phone flashlight on, as I, again, heard branches crackle and muddy steps in the darkness. It rained the whole night, so the ground was soaking wet offside the path I was on. I looked and saw the corn move a short distance behind me and shivered. What the actual fuck was going on? The crackling of some small branches and leaves continued, and so did the movement of the corn. I only saw the corn's outlines, looked around, and with my flashlight saw a bigger piece of wood on the hillock where the rail track was on, a branch that must have broke down one of the small trees on the hill, so I ran a few steps and picked it up. The crackling now was exactly in front of me, so I pointed my flashlight at the cornfield and glanced inside. With the branch, I moved the biggest stalks away to get a better view. Suddenly, my heart jumped and I froze as I spotted the guy squatting about 4 to 5 rows into the field. I now could see him clearly, my flashlight directly shone into his face. He looked normal at first glance, but had crazy wild eyes and and a really weird grin without exposing teeth. I stood there, frozen as he crouched there, smiling, and stared at me. "What the fuck do you think you're doing, you son of a bitch?" I shouted at him angry. He now grinned an even bigger grin, and I saw his teeth, or better, the ruins that were left of them. Black, spiky teeth. He didn't answer, just grinning and staring at me with his fierce eyes. I didn't want to move towards him to slap the fuck out of him, as I couldn't know if he was armed. One of his hands clawed into the mud, and the other one was in the pocket of his black jacket, but I didn't want to turn my back onto him again as well. So I stood up there, frozen, and he crouched there staring. Suddenly, he stopped smiling. His eyes squinted and he stood up. I instinctively made a step back, and all of a sudden he started to scream. He didn't scream words at me. In an awfully horrifying voice, he screamed a weird sing-sang into the black sky as I backed off and quickly started to move direction of the bridge. I took looks back every second and saw his outline slowly coming out of the cornfield, standing on the middle of the path until I was far away to see him in the gloom. But I heard him scream this terrible melody into the night. I heard his voice cut through the howling of the wind, the rustling leaves, and the rushing water. I reached the bridge at the intersection when he suddenly stopped screaming. I was expecting him to run after me as he did before, and I felt goosebumps all over my body, my heart beating to its maximum frequency. But it remained silent. The corn too didn't move. I ran over the bridge where the first street light was and felt a bit safer again, reached for my pack of cigarettes and lighted one. Quickly, I walked through an underpass that led to the other side of the highway, from where I was in a town centre. So, I felt I could now call the police and inform them, so nobody gets hurt walking there. A pair of women crossed my way, heading to the underpass which led to the bridge, which led to the path along the corn, so I warned them not to go there until police arrived. They never found someone matching my description. Gladly, they found his footprints in the muddy floor as I remembered where I picked up the wood. Otherwise, they would have thought I'm crazy. The next day as I walked along the road on the other side of the rail track, crossing the rails directly at the height of the bridge, armed with a switchblade. After about a week or so, we bought a second car. I never saw him again, but sometimes I wake up, hearing his screams piercing the silence, just to find out I dreamed about this instant again. Like tonight, why I thought I'd have to share finally. Surprisingly, now, 5 years later, the whole walkway alongside the rail platform has streetlights. You can see pretty clear along the corn now too. Why I sometimes go to work by foot again. Let's never meet again. Number 5. So this was probably a year ago in October. I just moved into my current place and was having a smoke outside my house. Around my area are mostly little houses like mine, with a small patch of woods in front of my house. In between my street and the woods is another small street about 250 feet away. It was around 9 PM and was fairly dark outside. Typical night, right? Nope. All of a sudden, I heard this weird noise. It sounds like loud growls that would gradually turn into screams. It sounded kind of far away, but I was still freaked out at the hell, nonetheless. I was on alert and standing completely still trying to figure out what the fuck it could be. Then, I see it. It was a man in his pyjamas about 400 feet away. He was rapidly and aggressively twitching his head, still making the noises, and slowly stumbling his way somewhere. I couldn't understand what the hell was going on. This man was acting possessed, or maybe had too much of, I don't know what the fuck kind of drug. Or maybe this was how the zombie apocalypse happens. Fair to say, I was hiding behind bushes near my front door. After what feels like 15 minutes of watching this man getting slightly closer to my house, he started to change his course. He was heading into the woods. The dark, creepy woods. My eyes didn't leave this guy until he was completely submerged into the wooden darkness, and for safe measure, I ran inside my house when I was sure he was gone and locked all doors and windows and shut the blinds. Later, I told some friends and family. I'm not sure if they believed me, but my uncle got me a strong set of pepper spray just in case. To this day, I don't know what happened in those woods or what was wrong with that guy, but needless to say, creepy, possessed man randomly wandering into the dark woods. Let's not meet again. Please and thank you. Number 4. My freshman year of college, I lived in the oldest, grossest dorms on campus. We were settled right in front of train tracks and right next to the busiest city street. Being 18 and careless, I was never really worried about the area. I figured we were safe enough with our locked gates and entryways. As many older dorms have, our floor had to share one huge bathroom. We had small, dimly lit square shower stalls covered by a thin plastic curtain. There were 8 shower stalls in total, 4 on each wall facing each other. One late morning, I was taking my shower when I heard rustling coming from a stall across from mine. I wasn't really friends with anyone in my dorm yet, so I didn't say anything. It got really quiet for a few minutes, then the rustling started again, but nobody had started the shower. I started to rush through my shower thinking there were mice or roaches in the bathroom making those noises. As I'm rinsing my hair, I get a peek through the crack between my shower curtain and the tiled wall, and I see what's been rustling around in the shower caddy corner to mine. I screamed loud enough to be heard throughout the entire floor. There had been a homeless man jerking off on the floor of the shower stall peeking at me through the edges of the curtain. He ran out of the bathroom and dorm before anyone could get there and get hold of him. Police were called and he was detained, and I never heard much more from that. Besides, they caught him near to the train tracks. Needless to say, I didn't live in the ghetto dorm for the entire school year. Second semester I was out of there, and the following year the entire building was torn down. Homeless people, although you looked like you were already on the brink of death, let's not meet again. Number 3. When I was about 8 years old, I lived in a very small town. Around that time, people were building tons of houses, and being in the middle of nowhere, as a kid, the 2 funniest things to do were play in the mud and those half-constructed houses. I hung out with the same group of friends just about every day, and by the time we returned home from school, the construction men were long gone. So, we were doing our thing, and playing, and whatnot, when this teenage man comes up to us. He's maybe 15 or 16, kinda chunky, with short brown hair and an awkward moustache. We'll call him Jason. I figure one particular friend of mine knows him, since he has a habit of randomly striking up conversations with people in town. We'll call this friend Jake. From the impression I have, Jake knows Jason a bit, and we all start hanging out. It's all good at first, but then Jason pulls out a wad of cash and starts daring us to do stuff. Every time we accomplish a day, he offers to give us $20 each. My friend did all kinds of stupid stuff, mostly eating gross things like spiders or something. It didn't really bring up any alarms, maybe because I was too greedy to see the harm in it. Eventually, a few of my friends leave, and it's just Jake, Jason and I. Jason offers me $20 if I can dodge a rock that he throws at me. I was reluctant at first, but then he raises up the price, and I wanted to prove I'm not a complete wimp, so I do it. One after another for what feels like an hour, he's trying to hit me with these rocks from about 30 feet away. Thankfully, I keep dodging it, but with each throw, I can see this guy's getting irritated and may in fact actually want to hurt me. Finally, I'm fed up and at this point just want to go home. We stop that game, but Jason is stalling for some reason after telling him I'm heading home. Then, Jason makes one more offer, and for a larger price. "I'll give you $200 if you two have sex in that house over there," referring to me and Jake. This is when I turn to Jake and have an immediate feeling of, what the fuck did we just get ourselves into? We exchange a glance that can be read as, we need to leave now. We don't want to piss this guy off and feeling we need to run away, all the while practically walking on eggshells. We basically say no and try to say we are expected at home soon. But this guy won't drop it, and eventually while he's trying to convince us, we make a run for our bikes and pedal as fast as we can. While we make a run for it, Jason runs to his four-wheeler and starts chasing after us. We still pedal as fast as we can, but his four-wheeler keeps up with us, and he starts gently tapping the back of our tyres with the front of his wheeler. At first, I think this was meant to be a scare tactic. I don't think he was trying to kill us, but he still wouldn't leave us alone. As we got further away from this secluded construction area and close to our homes where people could hear us screaming, he started to get off our asses, and the last thing I heard from him was, "I know where you live. Keep your mouth shut." As we were in safety, Jake goes on about not telling anyone what just happened. I was late in getting home, which made my mum question my whereabouts. I told her everything and she called the cops. After the cops were called, I was told the reason he may have had all that money is because prior to that day, someone had robbed the nearby gas station. I wasn't really kept in the loop after that, so I don't know what actually happened to Jason. From what I heard, I don't think he was arrested, and if he was, it was for a short while. But my stepdad made sure he became a target among our neighbours. He never messed with us again. Jason, let's never meet. Number 2. I hadn't really had an experience I thought qualified to be on here until last winter. Thinking back on it, it definitely belongs. I lived in a small but beautiful city in New England. One of my favourite things is photography. I don't have any elaborate gear, but I enjoy checking out new sites with my entry-level Canon. That being said, I headed downtown to get some proper long exposures in the city for the first time. It wasn't too cold or late, maybe around 9:30. There was an event going on at a condo building nearby that ended about halfway through my session, and suddenly the city seemed like a ghost town. About an hour later, I was satisfied with what I had and decided to call it a day and pack up my T3i and tripod. It happened to be good timing, and I'll tell you why. As I packed away my tripod and slung it over my back, I noticed a scraggly looking man walking my way at a normal pace. I was alone and on the side of town viewing the skyline, but away from the city lights to avoid pollution. I started walking very quickly and noticed him picking up speed extremely obviously. There was a staircase to my right about 50 feet off, so I made a sudden turn. When I made the turn and reached the bottom, I looked up to only notice that he had turned down the stairs as well. At this point I was alarmed. Luckily, I noticed a man about my age sitting on a park bench doing the same thing I was doing. I approached him and explained that there was someone behind me who I felt had been following me, and made it look like we knew each other. I feel like the dude saved me from being robbed of my gear that night. So, guy that might have been after my gear, let's not meet. Number 1. I posted this once before, but didn't do the spacing correctly, so it was removed. I also found the cards, so now I can include pictures. This is something that I just can't figure out. I'm not sure what to think about it. Maybe you guys have an opinion. I'm a 19-year-old female. When I was 8, around Valentine's Day, I received one of those small manila envelopes in the mail. It had no return address, but it was sent from another state that I didn't know anyone from. When I opened it, it was simply a folded sheet of computer paper with a picture of Linus from Charlie Brown, holding a heart and his blanket. It appeared to be drawn and coloured by hand. On the inside was a short Valentine's Day message with a small personal detail about my life that only someone close to me would know. Naturally, I thought it was probably my grandparents or my parents trying to do something nice for me. Every year, I received one of these cards around Valentine's Day. Every year, it had a picture of Linus, included a detail of my life, was typed in the same font, and was from a different state. X, the V-Day after I adopted my dog, Bailey. The card said, "Would Bailey be jealous if you were my Valentine?" I kept most of these. I managed to find a few as I was rummaging through old worthless junk. I'll include some pictures at the end. When I got older, I finally mentioned it to my grandparents, fully expecting it to be them, but they swore that they weren't sending them. I honestly believe it, because I had expressed my concerns by this point, and they aren't the type who want to scare me. Neither are my parents. The only other family member I have in the US are my dad's parents, who don't speak English well, and have never owned a computer. They immigrated here, and wouldn't know people in so many states. Aside from my parents and my brother, who find it strange as well, I have no other family. I still get the cards every year, always the same, except for one Valentine's Day a few years ago. I received a stuffed teddy bear and a big chocolate heart along with the card. Needless to say, I did not eat the chocolate, and I have searched that fucking bear, half convinced that there would be a hidden camera. After that year, I started just receiving the cards again. In any case, as a child it was sort of exciting and mysterious, like a secret admirer. Now it's just unnerving. I have racked my brain for years trying to figure out who it could possibly be, and I've come up empty-handed. It still makes me uneasy, but if this person wanted to hurt me, I think they would have done it by now. I've never felt outwardly threatened by them, so I don't think there's much I can do about it. The main thing I want to know is, why? What is the point, and who? I may never find out. Here are some pictures. Well, anyway guys, that's it with this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. This is a series that I am going to be starting to do, and it is going to be coming up more often than maybe every week. So stay tuned for that. If you have any stories of your own and you wish to share them, then please either leave them in the comments or send me a message, or even leave them on Reddit, seeing as how that's where I'm getting most of these Let's Not Meet videos. Anyway, I hope to see you soon, and I will speak to you later.